Welcome to Crossdressing Stories. Here, we share personal stories, celebrate self-expression. If you're on your own journey or simply curious, you've found your community. Subscribe and join the conversation.
Leo Caldwell thought he was just making a friendly bet with his neighbor, Cora Voss. The deal was simple. If he lost the county fair's pie-eating contest, he would have to work as her assistant at her hair salon for a month. But when Leo lost, he quickly discovered that Cora's idea of an assistant was much different than he ever could have imagined. This is the story of how a lost bet turned into a month that would change his life forever. It was a blistering Saturday in late July, the kind of day where the heat was a physical weight, shimmering off the asphalt in waves. Cicadas droned in a relentless, high-pitched chorus that vibrated in your teeth. Leo Caldwell was halfway through mowing his pitiful excuse for a lawn, a second skin of sweat plastering his gray Metallica t-shirt to his back, when Cora Voss appeared at the fence. She wore a wide-brimmed straw hat and oversized sunglasses, sipping an iced tea that glistened with a universe of condensation. "Caldwell," she called, her voice a cool, cutting melody that sliced right through the mower's growl. "Planning to melt out here, or are you just trying to sweat out last night's bad decisions?" Leo killed the engine and leaned against the handle, wiping his brow with a forearm that came away slick. "Just trying to keep this suburban jungle from reclaiming my property, Voss. What's the emergency? Run out of gossip at the salon." She tilted her head, a playful, dangerous smirk tugging at her lips. "County fair's next week. You entering that grotesque pie-eating contest again?" He puffed out his chest, unable to resist the bait. "You know it. Two-time champ going for the hat trick. My stomach is a local legend." Cora's eyes, hidden behind the dark lenses, seemed to gleam with mischief. "Care to make it interesting? A little wager." Leo raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. "What's the deal?" "If you win," she said, her voice smooth as silk, "I'll give you free haircuts for a year. And I mean proper, stylish cuts, not that buzz cut nonsense you usually get that makes you look like a disgruntled thumb." He grunted. "And if I lose?" She paused for dramatic effect, tapping a perfectly manicured nail against her glass. "If you lose, you're my personal assistant at the salon for 1 month." He laughed, a loud, scoffing sound. The idea of sweeping hair clippings or fetching coffee seemed harmless, almost comical. "What, like some errand boy? You're on, Voss." They shook hands over the fence, her grip surprisingly firm and cool against his sweaty palm. Leo didn't give it a second thought. He'd crushed the competition before. How hard could it be? As Cora turned back toward her house, her smile widened into something sharp and almost predatory. Leo, starting his mower again, was blissfully unaware that he hadn't just made a bet. He'd signed an invisible contract. The county fair rolled into town with all the chaotic charm Leo remembered. The air was thick with the aroma of funnel cakes, kettle corn, and the faint, earthy tang of livestock. A banner proclaiming the Maplewood Annual Pie-Eating Contest was strung across the main stage, where a small crowd had already gathered. Leo stood at the long table, flanked by a motley crew of challengers, a scrawny teen with braces, a middle-aged woman in a floral apron, and Gunnar, the grizzly Jensen, a hulking newcomer with arms like tree trunks and a beard that looked like it had its own ecosystem. Cora watched from the sidelines, arms crossed, her sunglasses perched atop her head like a diadem. She caught Leo's eye and gave him a mock salute, her lips curling into that knowing grin that was starting to unnerve him. The rules were simple. 10 minutes, as many blueberry pies as you could stomach, no hands. The whistle blew, and Leo dove face-first into the sticky, sweet mess. The first 3 pies went down smoothly. By the 4th, his pace faltered. His stomach gurgled ominously, the sugar coating his throat like glue. Gunnar, meanwhile, was a machine. He attacked each pie with mechanical precision, his beard streaked with purple goo. Leo pushed through the 5th pie, then the 6th, but the 7th was his undoing. He gagged, a wave of nausea cresting, and dropped his head to the table, defeated. When the timer buzzed, Gunnar had polished off 10 pies to Leo's 6. The crowd erupted for the new champion. Cora sauntered over, dangling a napkin in front of him. "Nice try, champ." Guess I'll see you Monday at 8 a.m. sharp. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Wear something comfortable. You'll be on your feet all day. He snatched the napkin, his pride as bruised as his overstuffed gut. What am I even going to be doing? Her smile was all teeth. Oh, you'll see. Monday dawned gray and muggy. Leo trudged next door to Voss and Company. Artistry, a name that sounded far more sophisticated than the salon he remembered. The interior was sleek and minimalist, all chrome, black leather, and polished concrete. Cora stood behind the reception desk, dressed in a tailored black blazer. She looked less like a small-town stylist and more like a CEO about to announce a hostile takeover. Morning, Caldwell, she said, her tone clipped and professional. Before we start, you need to sign this. She slid a thick, binder-clipped stack of papers across the counter. The cover page read, Assistant Employment and Conduct Agreement. He flipped through it. The text was a maze of tiny print dotted with phrases like duties as assigned, uniform compliance, employer's absolute discretion, and non-disclosure of proprietary methods. What is all this? He asked, suddenly wary. Just standard procedure, Cora replied smoothly. Outlines your role, the dress code I'll be providing, and ensures you'll follow my directions to the letter. You're here to help me, after all. It's just a formality. Shrugging, Leo figured he'd signed leases with more fine print. How bad could it be? He grabbed a pen and scribbled his name, tossing the contract back to her. There. Happy? Very, Cora said, tucking the papers into a locked drawer. Your first uniform is in the back. Go change. In the cramped staff room, Leo opened the bag she'd handed him. He expected an apron, maybe a branded polo shirt. Instead, out tumbled a pair of delicate pink lace panties and a matching push-up bra. He stormed back out, the lingerie dangling from his fingers like a bad joke. Cora, what the hell is this? She leaned against the counter, utterly unfazed. It's your uniform. The contract you just signed states you'll wear whatever I provide. And follow my instructions. You're not just my assistant, Leo. For the next month, you are my assistant. His jaw went slack. You're insane, boss. I'm not wearing this. Oh, but you are, she said, her voice hardening. You agreed to the terms. I have your signature. You can either put those on and begin your month of employment, or we can discuss the penalties for breach of contract. They're extensive. Leo stared at her, then at the lingerie. He hadn't read a single word of the penalty clause. His bank account couldn't handle a lawsuit, and the cold edge in her voice suggested she wasn't bluffing. With a groan of utter defeat, he slunk back to the staff room. He spent the next 2 weeks in a state of escalating humiliation and strange adaptation. The initial lingerie was just the beginning. Soon, he was being waxed from head to toe by the salon's other stylists, Mia and Chloe, whose sympathetic smiles didn't make the searing pain any more bearable. Then came the dresses, floral sundresses, simple A-lines, and the low, blocky heels he had to practice walking in after hours. Cora started calling him Lena. It's softer, she'd said. Leo is too harsh for the ambience we're curating. Next was makeup. Days of fumbling with foundation, poking his eye with a mascara wand, and smudging lipstick ended with him being able to create a subtle, natural look that made his face look different. Softer. Almost pretty. The piercings, small, tasteful studs in his ears and a tiny diamond in one nostril, felt like a permanent brand. Each step chipped away at the Leo he knew, replacing him with this new person, Lena, who was quiet, efficient, and surprisingly good at comforting clients nervous about a big chop. As the final week of the month approached, Leo, or Lena, felt a profound sense of dislocation. He'd learned to move gracefully in heels, his voice had taken on a gentler cadence, and the feel of a silk blouse against his smooth skin was no longer alien, but normal. On the last day of the wager, Cora called him into her office. He entered, wearing a simple navy dress and flats, his makeup immaculate. The month is up, Leo, she said, using his old name for the first time in weeks. It sounded foreign. The bet is satisfied. You're free to go. Your old clothes are in the staff room. Lena stood there, motionless. The thought of putting on his baggy jeans and Metallica t-shirt felt like putting on a costume. The idea of mowing that lawn, of going back to being just Leo Caldwell, felt empty. He looked at his reflection in the dark glass of a picture frame on her wall. He saw a stranger with his eyes, a person he didn't recognize but was starting to understand. Cora watched him, her expression unreadable. However, she continued, steepling her fingers. I have a proposition. The salon is expanding. I need a permanent assistant manager. The job is yours if you want it. It would, of course, mean continuing on as Lena. She let the offer hang in the air. Go back to being the man who lost a bet? Or stay and become the woman he was being molded into. The door was open. He could walk out and leave Lena behind forever. Or he could stay. He looked from Cora to his reflection, the choice a terrifying, exhilarating weight in his chest. The silence in Cora's office was a living thing, pressing in on him from all sides. Leo or Lena, the person standing frozen in the navy dress, felt his entire world pivot on the single, terrifying axis of her offer. The path back to being Leo Caldwell was clearly marked, a well-trodden road back to a life of comfortable, unexamined masculinity. He could walk out that door, shed this persona like a snake's skin, and let the last month fade into a bizarre, humiliating anecdote he would never tell. It was the easy path, the safe path, and every instinct in his body screamed that it was a lie. I need to think, he finally managed, his voice a quiet rasp, a sound that belonged to neither Leo nor Lena, but to the confused soul caught between them. Cora nodded slowly, a flicker of something unreadable, disappointment, patience in her eyes. Take the weekend, Leo. Lock yourself away and figure it out. But be honest with yourself when you do. Who were you happier being for the last 30 days? The next 48 hours were a self-imposed exile in a house that no longer felt like his own. He peeled off the dress and flats and pulled on his old clothes. The denim of his jeans felt coarse and foreign against his smooth, hairless legs. The baggy Metallica t-shirt, once a comfortable uniform, felt sloppy and shapeless, hiding a body he had spent weeks learning to carry with intention and grace. He wandered through the rooms of his life, but it was like touring a museum of a man he used to know. The stack of video games by the console, the grimy grilling tools on the patio, the faded sports posters on his bedroom wall, they were all artifacts of a stranger. He tried to watch football, but the aggressive commentary grated on his ears. He tried to fire up the lawnmower, but the thought of the roaring engine and the choking fumes made him feel tired. He was a ghost in his own home, haunted by the vibrant, elegant woman he had been forced to become. On Saturday afternoon, desperate for a dose of his old reality, he drove to the hardware store for lawnmower oil, a definitively Leo errand. The familiar smell of sawdust, fertilizer, and metal should have been comforting. Instead, it was just alien. As he stood in the plumbing aisle, staring blankly at a wall of PVC pipes, a booming voice shattered his stupor. Hey, Caldwell. Gunnar, the grisly Jensen, the man who had defeated him, the unwitting catalyst for this entire surreal journey, clapped him on the shoulder with a hand the size of a dinner plate. The casual, masculine force of it nearly sent Leo stumbling. Haven't seen you around, Gunnar chuckled, oblivious to Leo's inner turmoil. This is my wife, Sarah. Honey, this is the guy I told you about from the pie contest. Leo, right? A petite woman with kind eyes smiled. Oh, the two-time champ. Gunnar was so nervous. He said your reputation was legendary. She then glanced at his face, her head tilting. You look different. Your skin is nice. You going to Voss and Company? Leo just nodded, his throat tight. I told you, honey, everyone goes to Cora, Gunnar said. Tough boss, Caldwell? You have no idea, Leo mumbled. Sarah laughed softly. Oh, Cora's tough, but she has a gift. She can see who a person is supposed to be, even when they can't see it themselves. She looks right through the noise. Gunnar moved on to talk about leaky faucets, but Leo was no longer listening. Sarah's words echoed in his head, a thunderclap of understanding that shook him to his core. She can see who a person is supposed to be. This whole month, it wasn't just a punishment. It was a deconstruction. A meticulous, sometimes cruel, but purposeful chiseling away of the noise to reveal something underneath. Had Cora seen Lena hiding inside the brash, prideful Leo all along? The thought was both terrifying and profoundly liberating. This wasn't about a bet anymore. It was about an identity he'd never known he possessed, one that had been drawn to the surface by force, but one that now felt more authentic than the person he'd been for 30 years. He missed the quiet confidence of Lena, the precision of her movements, the gentle cadence of her voice. He missed her. He left the hardware store, the lawnmower oil forgotten on the counter. He drove not home, but to the mall. Walking through the bright, noisy corridors in his drab Leo costume, he felt invisible and insignificant. On a strange, compelling impulse, his feet carried him into a high-end department store, past the men's section, and directly to the women's floor. He moved through the racks of clothing, his fingers brushing against silk, cashmere, and soft cotton. This time, he wasn't looking at frilly dresses or anything Cora would have chosen. He was looking for himself. He found a simple, elegant blouse in a deep sapphire blue, a pair of perfectly tailored black trousers, and a pair of chic, low-heeled leather boots. In the dressing room, he changed. The moment he zipped up the trousers and buttoned the blouse, the storm inside him began to settle. He looked in the mirror, and he didn't see Leo in women's clothes. He saw Lena, but a version of her that he had chosen. This wasn't a costume. It was a statement. As he walked to the register, a friendly, older saleswoman smiled at him. "That is a wonderful choice, dear. That color is just stunning on you." The simple, unprompted validation was like a balm on his soul. It was real. Monday morning, he didn't knock on Cora's front door. He used the staff key she had given him and entered the silent, empty salon. He went to the makeup station and, with a steady hand, applied a subtle, confident look, less than Cora's dramatic flair, but more than he'd ever worn before. He was dressed in the new outfit he'd bought, and he carried himself with a newfound poise that was neither Leo's aggressive swagger nor Lena's early timidity. It was something new. Something whole. He found Cora in her office, sipping coffee. She looked up, and for the first time, her sharp, analytical gaze softened into a genuine, unguarded smile. "Lena," she said, her voice warm. "I was hoping I'd see you this morning." "Cora," Lena replied, her own voice steady and clear. "I've considered your offer." She stepped fully into the room, standing not as a subordinate, but as an equal. "And I'll take the job. But not as your assistant. I want to be your apprentice. I want you to teach me everything. The business, the styling, how to see what you see in people. I'm not content to be your project anymore. I want to be your partner." Cora's smile widened, a deep, authentic expression of pride. "An apprentice who will eventually become a partner? I like the sound of that." She leaned back in her chair. "I knew it, you know. The day I saw you miserably mowing that lawn, trapped in a life that was too small and loud for the person you really were. I took a risk. A cruel one, maybe. But I bet on the person I saw underneath. So the bet," Lena began, "was just the key to unlock the door," Cora finished. "You were the one who had to be brave enough to walk through it." She stood up and walked around her desk. "But if you're going to be my partner," she said, her eyes twinkling with that familiar mischief, "you can't be Lena Caldwell. It doesn't have the right ring to it." Lena felt a smile touch her own lips, the first truly joyful one of her new life. "What do you suggest?" "I think," Cora said, extending a hand, "that Voss and Company has room for another Voss on the letterhead." Lena took her hand, the grip firm and sure. The wager was over, but the real work, the real life, had just begun. In Maplewood, a man named Leo Caldwell faded not into defeat, but into a past self. In his place, a woman named Lena Voss began to build a future. She was a story whispered at first, then spoken with admiration, the tale of how a lost bet at the county fair led to the discovery of a lifetime, proving that sometimes the most profound transformations begin not with a punishment, but with an invitation.